Hi, my name is Tyler, and I'm the CEO of Gigantum. We are a DC-based startup that's creating a data science platform that's aimed at scientific researchers and publishers much like yourselves. The platform combines a work environment with a publication and collaboration service, and the basic idea is to make it easier for everybody to work, share, and collaborate. In terms of our origins and our motivation, we can just kind of take myself for an example. I'm a recovering mathematician that left academia about 7 years ago to work as a scientific consultant to various agencies in the DC area. And there I worked on helping create and manage a variety of machine learning and mathematics programs. And in that experience, I learned very fundamentally that science is increasingly code. And because of this, we need to really change the way that we capture and disseminate scientific knowledge in order to eliminate waste in a wide variety of forms. My co-founders come out of computational neuroscience, and there they have, from a practitioner's perspective, a very sort of fundamental grip and grappling with this basic problem. So this problem, though, when you speak to an audience of non-practitioners, it's very difficult to make it concrete to you. You see it as basically something abstract, something we know that we need to do. So I want to have an imperfect but very concrete analogy to use. So who was lucky enough to travel in the 70s and 80s prior to the advent of the automatic cash machine or international credit cards? If you did, you will remember the pain, confusion, and suffering of currency exchange and navigating sort of local economies and the variation there. It turns out that in the system of exchange of scientific code and data, that experience is very similar for researchers, publishers, and reviewers. What is that? Well, every transaction is conducted in two mutually unintelligible languages. If you have researcher A in Python and researcher B in MATLAB, you know you've got a problem there. The second thing is every transaction was conducted or is conducted with a lot of mutual distrust on either angle. One side is worried about being shortchanged on the exchange rate. The other side is very, going through all the notes and making sure that they're not counterfeit. And while the actual transactions don't fit that well, the pain that's felt in the experience is very similar. And so, this is the collective misery, and we as a group of people that had, I myself was a moderate practitioner, but my co-founders were, and still are practitioners. The question is, what is the perspective from the individual? So if you look at this, what you see is, really in some sense the effect of the rising tide of open source and the slow death of proprietary platforms. You see that any individual has a plethora of options and choices to them. You see that there is a rising tide of skills requirements. And then you also see that the individual is subject to the shifting sands of sort of obsolescent technology as well as user preferences. This is not something that best practices will solve. This is not something that centralized or static approaches can keep up with. And this is something that we set out to sort of change, if possible, with a very different perspective on how one should create environments. So, about 2 years ago, we started out and we wanted to make a new kind of software, a local software, not just sort of a cloud-based or a centralized approach, that would address the problems of the individual and would do a couple very basic things. The first, as you can see from this, is this idea that we have an application that does a very clear separation of concerns. If you look at that top-level box, you may not know all of those things, but those are very high-level tools and frameworks that the vast majority of people are very comfortable using. If you look in the bottom box, the Gigantum managed part, those are, in general, tools that not that many people know how to use. And depending on who you are, you may be comfortable with some, all, or maybe none of those, right? And so the idea of the application is it sort of separates these concerns and uses a high degree of automation and simplification to take care of all the things that people either don't want to or don't know how to do. Again, one of the things that we really focused on was making sure that this software was local in nature and really fundamentally solved the machine-to-machine and the person-to-person transfer, because the idea was once you could solve that in a robust and automated way, you got a lot of things for free. What do you get for free? Well, much like when you introduce the notion of an ATM or international credit card transfers, once you reduce the friction in the transactions, you get free flow of goods and services, hypothetically, across a variety of boundaries and locations that you shouldn't be able to transfer across. So the fundamental aspect of this is an MIT-licensed local piece of software, and once you have that, then you get interaction with cloud resources, and you also get interaction with on-premises resources, essentially for free, Of course, the value proposition being turned into some sort of a business model for which this picture is essentially kind of how we believe that it will work. And yeah, I think that's about it. So yeah, 5 minutes are up.